Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Storytelling the New Ancient Art. My name is Gina Pappas, and I am the Director of New Media at Alvers Communications Group. First, let me tell you a little bit about Alvers Communications Group. We are a full-service PR and social media agency headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska, and we strongly believe that PR and social media go hand in hand and work best when used as part of an integrated communication strategy. We represent clients in all 50 states and Canada, and our team of PR and social media specialists helps our clients achieve exposure nationally and locally in their operating markets throughout the country. We have specialized expertise working with companies that have franchises, offices, or branch locations in multiple cities. As I mentioned before, I'm the Director of New Media, and my role is to help our clients figure out how to integrate social media into their overall strategy. I also manage our Alvers social media presence and contribute along with several other staff members to our PR Impressions blog. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on Twitter at Gina Pappas. Here's a look at the topics I will be covering today. First, we'll take a look at defining what has become a popular industry buzz term, and that is media storytelling. I will suggest several types of stories you can tell and show you examples of each. Next, I will share with you the key elements for creating a good story about your business. I will talk about the four main types of media or storytelling vehicles you can use to share your message. I will give you tips on how to build storytelling into your own company's culture, and then we will close with questions and discussion, so feel free to chat your questions in along the way. There are two key points that I want you to take away from today's webinar. My first goal is to provide you with guidelines that help you identify the stories happening in your own business. And my second goal is to help you maximize good story opportunities when they arise. Oftentimes when we're working with our clients, we can easily and quickly identify potential media storytelling ideas that they may not have considered. And this is where media storytelling comes into play. Using media storytelling to tell your stories engages your audience. When they're absorbed in a story, they're moved far more emotionally than they are by reading facts or statistics, because that type of information can lead to criticism and skepticism. But when you tell a story, your audience becomes engaged and ends up dropping their intellectual guard, and that's the goal of what we do and what we're here to share with you today. So I want to take you through some of the media storytelling basics and start by taking a little snippet from a book called Tell to Win. The author is Peter Gubber, and he argues that humans simply aren't moved to action by data dumps, facts, or figures. Gubber emphasizes that people are moved by emotion, and the best way to emotionally connect with other people is to do so and share your story through media storytelling. To break it down further, the basics of media storytelling, it embodies your brand or your business. It talks about who you are and gives people a real sense of that. It also inspires people to engage, share, or take some other type of action, and it makes a meaningful, lasting connection with your audience. Stories are remembered far longer than ads, and that's what we're trying to capture through media storytelling. So just like a good book, the qualities of a good media story follow some very basic storytelling principles. There's the angle, which is the overall position or take of the story. There's a hook or some other strategy that grabs your attention and leaves you wanting more. There are people, either sources or central characters, who humanize the story. There's a visual element. A common term in newsrooms nowadays is show and tell, which emphasizes having something to show along with the story that you're telling. So we try to include a visual element in every good media story that we tell. There's a call to action, something that inspires the audience to take an action like visit a website, utilize a product, or start following a brand socially. There's conflict, which is often the newsworthy piece that drives media attention. And then lastly, there's accessibility and something the audience can relate to. Appeal to a broad audience is the greatest way to have your story told through earned media channels, because the news is going to look for things that are going to impact the most number of readers or listeners or viewers. So until recently, we've only been able to speculate about the story's persuasive effects. But over the last several decades, psychology has begun a series of how story affects the human mind. Results repeatedly show that our attitudes, fears, hopes, and values are strongly influenced by story. And there are several types of stories you can tell, and in the following slides, I will describe each in further detail. They include problem-solution stories, people-driven or human interest stories, behavioral stories, trend stories, or breaking stories, and I'm going to show you a few examples of each of those. The first example we have here is a problem-solution story format. Problem-solution stories are among the most common types of stories that earn media exposure. If you present a problem, it has a broad appeal to a large audience and offer your product or service as the solution, you can oftentimes gain media exposure. As I mentioned earlier when I walked you through examples of good storytelling, I mentioned the angle. In the problem-solution story, the angle is that your product or service can provide mass appeal. In the example you see here, we distributed information on behalf of our client, Mary Maids, about how the tough fall allergy season of 2012 impacted local residents in this particular community, and how properly cleaning your home could provide some relief from allergy symptoms. We were able to schedule an interview with a local TV station that ran during the newscast and online, in which the Mary Maids franchise owner appeared as the expert on how to clean your home properly as a way to reduce the presence of allergens in the home. So then we shared the interview on the client's social platforms, and that showed offline and online integration. So any story that is told through a traditional channel or an earned channel can also be shared socially, and I think that's important to note. Another type of story you can tell is a human interest or person-driven story. Alvers Communications Group was featured as an example of this type of story about a month ago when Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer announced that employees would no longer be allowed to work from home. Because our staff works remotely, we were profiled in the Omaha World-Herald, and the message told within the story centered around how I, as the interview subject or central character, as it might relate to media storytelling, make it work. So what we did here was take a relevant national example and put a local human face on it, and that's part of telling a good human interest story. Behavioral stories inspire people to take action or change an attitude. We developed a program for our client, Home Instead Senior Care, called the 40-70 Rule. The premise of that program was that if you're 40 and your parent is 70, it's time to have a discussion about senior care options. This program was extremely successful in inspiring behavioral changes among Home Instead's target audience. In fact, it was recognized by the Public Relations Society of America as a Silver Anvil Award winner, meaning it was one of the best PR programs in the country. And this is where the call to action element of a good story comes into play. The action in this campaign was to encourage the audience to contact Home Instead so they could get their own set of 40-70 Rule materials and start having those conversations with their own families. And this is an example of a trend story. They're another type of story you can tell, and for our client Verizon Wireless, we developed a story around tax time and the various phone apps that can help you make taxes less taxing. Tax apps are a relatively new trend, so telling the story, which again appeals to a large segment of the audience and also has a problem-solution element to it, resulted in multiple stories for our client. Remember earlier I mentioned an important story element is visual interest. In this case, we suggested that the reporter actually show the tax apps and give a demonstration to make the story more visually appealing. Earlier this week, in the aftermath of the tragedy at the Boston Marathon, we had the opportunity to tell a breaking news story for a private security client. Especially when it comes to breaking stories such as this one that center around sensitive topics, you have to be careful about how you share your message and make sure that what you're saying is really educational. So we distributed information on how to maintain personal safety in a crowd, and that immediately followed what happened in Boston. And we received multiple local and national placements on behalf of our client. So in this case, it was a breaking story that worked really well, not only to educate people, but it also provided exposure opportunities. So there are four main types of media you can use to tell your story, and I've alluded to them already today. They are earned media, shared media, owned media, and paid media. And on the following slides, I will further break down each type and provide an example for you. What is earned media? Earned media is unpaid exposure, which is often achieved through traditional news channels such as newspaper, TV, radio, or magazine, but it also has an online component which comes in the form of inbound linking or blogger relations. We've created a press room on our website where we host all of the earned media exposure we've achieved for Alvers, which is a great way to highlight to your audience how active you are in telling your own story. So if you do receive a lot of news as a company, it's a great idea to house all of that news in one place, and we recommend the online newsroom as a valuable tool for doing that. Shared media is the newest form of media and a term that you may not be familiar with. It uses audience participation or input to tell its story, which makes social channels such as Facebook and Twitter fall into this category. Because your audience can post content on your Facebook wall, comment, or share a post, they are part of the conversation and the content. Same goes for Twitter. If your audience can retweet you or reply to you, they're shaping your content. The example you see here is a contest we ran in conjunction with our client, Signal 88 Security, called Operation American Dream from Battlefield to Boss. The contest had an online voting component and was prominently featured across multiple social channels, so the outcome of the contest is largely determined by audience participation, making it a shared media campaign. Next, what is owned media? Owned media refers to storytelling vehicles that you own and can control. Examples might include your online properties such as your website or your email newsletter marketing strategy, or in the case of the example here, online videos. Testimonials like this example from our client at Paul Davis Restoration provide the opportunity for someone who has experience with your business to share with the rest of your audience what makes you so outstanding. And in today's online-driven world, having a robust owned media presence is necessary. Plus, it's the one storytelling medium that allows you to fully control the message, so we, of course, encourage you to take advantage of that. And what is paid media? Paid media is taking an advertising approach to promoting your business, and anybody can use paid media to advance their message. It encompasses both offline and online strategies, from broadcast or print advertising to something like you see here with Google AdWords advertising. Because the business trying to gain the exposure is paying for it, it's the least credible form of media and the one that sticks with your audience for the shortest period of time and often even goes ignored. So I'd like to take you through an example of a story we recently told for our client at Grace University that incorporated 3 out of the 4 media types I've shared with you today. The story we were telling was Grace's addition of a new sport, women's soccer, to their athletic program, and the focus of the story was on the new coach. Her name's Tanya Benning, and she used to be a member of the Canadian World Cup team. To help tell Grace's story, we used one of their owned media types, their website, to prominently feature a video of the new coach and tell her story. We also deployed an earned media strategy through media relations in the local market, which resulted in a story in the Omaha World Herald. And to support the owned and earned media, we told the story through one of our shared platforms, Facebook, which allowed Grace's audience to comment, like, and share the story, making their own friends and audiences aware of Grace's news too. This campaign illustrates how the 3 most credible forms of storytelling can be used together for maximum exposure. So when you return to your workday following this webinar, you might be wondering how you can start telling your company's own stories. First, you have to start by building storytelling into your culture. Designate someone on your team who is responsible for gathering the stories and get the process going through internal dialogue, perhaps a meeting to discuss your business and its goals, and make that dialogue ongoing. Your designated storyteller can find stories for fostering an environment that promotes idea sharing. We tell our clients that the more information they can provide to us about what's happening in their day-to-day work, the more opportunities we have to identify the stories that might be compelling for their audience. So sharing anything and everything with your storyteller allows them to sort through the information and identify the best stories. To help you get started with identifying possible topics, take a look at the work you do. Talk about your successes, share third-party articles relevant to your industry, or discuss a trend. And don't forget your people, because honoring the team that makes your company tick is compelling. It makes them part of the story, and that inspires shares and potentially grows your audience, especially in the social arena. Things like personal awards, business anniversaries, or office birthdays often make the most compelling content, especially, again, when it comes to those shared channels. I'd like to take a moment to tell you about a few upcoming webinars we have in our ongoing series. On June 19th, founder and CEO Tom Alvers will be talking about best practices for avoiding and managing potential crisis situations in your business. And on August 21st, Vice President and Director of Public Relations Debbie Hilt will discuss media interview preparation and share some of our best media training tips. You can pre-register for both of these webinars at alverscommunications.com/learning opportunities, and there are also past webinars that we've conducted available at that same link, as well as a recording of today's webinar. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions about media storytelling, please feel free to connect with me and contact Alvers Communications Group. You can find all of our contact information on the web at alverscommunications.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please stand by.